Welcome to week 5 of the Confidence Formula program. We are talking about finishing this week with the finisher. So we don't talk about just layups, where most people think of option 1 with my strong hand and option 2 with my weak hand. We actually work on 32 different finishes across 5 different angles around the basket using both hands with moves and counter moves. And so we're going to talk about that first. We're going to talk about the 0 step, really just bring your awareness to the importance of the timing of your dribble with a certain step before you approach the basket with your final 2 steps. So the 0 step is where your dribble lands for your final dribble on your approach to the basket. And we're going to talk about change of direction moves and decisions at the rim based on avoiding a rim defender. And then we're going to talk about finishing through contact. So kind of giving you a framework to think about whether you should finish through contact versus force the defender to really overplay one option and use a counter move instead, with the ultimate goal of getting comfortable finishing with any hand off of any foot anytime. That's like my big ideal vision for you as a finisher around the basket. So let's jump into some moves and counter moves. We're going to start with the simplest version of any finish at the basket, which is the final 2 steps without any dribble needed. So pretending we either just caught a pass on a cut or we just picked up our dribble, we are on our 0 step, and now we have our 1-2 finish. So we're going to work on what we call outside hand versus inside hand reverse layups, getting our hand farthest from the basket or closest to the basket, inside and outside. We're going to work on a Euro step as one of our counter moves. And we're also going to work on some stop and pivots, some of which you'll have seen already with our 3 stops framework we've been working with. Our hockey stop is used a lot in some counter moves where you can stop, pivot, and come up with options, even though you're out of steps and without needing another dribble. And then we're going to talk about the framework for decision making, what I call the light switch, kind of thinking about only 2 options, having a light switch that's always on. Like I always know I'm going to make this right hand default layup. I'm not going to change it to a finger roll or a scoop shot or anything fancy unless I really have to. I'm just going to go make it every single time. And then when the defense overplays that, we flip the switch and our counter move gets us a lot of free and open space. So we're going to see a bunch of different options around the basket, some of which will be familiar to you. Some of the pieces we've been working with, like our pizza pan, demonstrating here on our shoulder, getting our knee above our hip, getting our final 2-finger push, just reviewing some of the pieces we've already been working with. Elbows to ears, trying to protect the ball as we're going through the paint. And we're starting simply from our standard 45-degree angle layup, where most of us practice only this angle in like warm-up lines in the game. We're going to start building from here. So next one is an inside hand finish. So we're on the left side of the basket. We're shooting with our right hand, jumping off our outside foot. Across the rim finish, we're simply going across the backboard. Euro step, we go from inside to outside and end up finishing with our inside hand. We're going to do that from multiple different angles to get you comfortable whenever a defender takes away your path to the basket. Circle finish here, getting our head under the rim, wrapping our hand around it. And then our Euro step reverse layup, one of my favorites. If you watch me play pickup and I get a fast break, it's kind of my go-to move. If I don't have a straight layup, I'll Euro step and go reverse on the other side. Euro step floater is one of my favorites, getting space away from the basket and away from the D to get sideways and get up into a floater. This is the outside hand reverse. I'm coming underneath the backboard, pointing my toe to the free throw line, using my hand that's closest to the baseline or farthest from the basket. Inside hand reverse is just the opposite. Other side of the basket, same idea. Outside hand is now my left, coming from underneath the backboard, and I'm turning my toe to the free throw line to set up body angle. And then the inside hand reverse is here. My right hand is closer to the middle of the court. So that gives you the basic framework from our 5 different angles. and we're going to build a big skill set from there. Okay, foot and ball timing, what we call the 0 step, is the step that hits the floor when you dribble. Dribble and foot hit at the same time, that's a 0 step. It's important because if your dribble is too early or too late, you can end up either traveling. If it was an early dribble before the step you normally would take or intended to take, you'll probably take 3 after the dribble and end up traveling. Or if you dribbled too late, rather, not necessarily a problem because you'll probably take only 1 step instead of 2. So you might just not go as far or use all the advantage available to you. The pivot step is what I call the first step after you dribble. So thinking about like our 1 dribble pull-up we've already worked on a little bit from our stride stop. If we dribble right-handed with right foot, we go left, right into a jump shot. The left foot was the first step that hit the floor. That's our pivot foot, and I call it our pivot step. So when we're picking up a dribble, knowing our first step is the one available to pivot on, the second step would be like to stop us in a hockey stop. We could then pivot around, do our rondo finish, some of the stuff we've touched on already. The jump step, if we're doing a normal layup, is the second step after dribble. So we have 0, 1, 2. 0, 1, and then 2, I'm jumping, lifting off. And that stays the same on a Euro step. Some referees don't understand that. But if I dribble 1, 2 forward, I can also dribble 1 forward and 2 sideways. Still took the same number of steps to get a Euro step. And then the goofy foot, something that you have probably only heard referenced as the wrong foot by most of your coaches. We give it a name so we can do it on purpose. A lot of you may, especially on your weak hand side, finish off of the goofy foot kind of by accident. You kind of figured out how to make it work because you hadn't really thought about it as much as we have. But anytime you're dribbling with the same side-handed foot, you have the opportunity to take your 2 strides and end up jumping off of the same side foot as the hand you're finishing with. And you can't extend your body quite as far. If you think about your body as a rectangle, you're kind of using one side of it, jumping down with your leg and pushing up with your hand on the same side. So you don't get as much extension. It feels a little bit awkward or goofy. And so we call it the goofy foot. And we actually use it as a tool on purpose because it's kind of an offbeat rhythm. It can throw off a shot blocker, can get you an early finish, and can give you some opportunity to create a any hand, any foot, anytime way to score when otherwise you would not have an opportunity. So we're going to see the simple version, but this is what a standard timing looks like. 0 step hits exactly with the dribble. We have our 1, 2 step afterwards. And we can get into that from a live dribble. We can get to that from a catch. We can get to that from our stride stop catch or our jump stop catch. A lot of ways that get to the same idea. When we're going left out of a stride stop, our pivot foot was our left foot when we caught it. So our right foot needs to step over. That's what we're seeing on the left-hand drive here. And getting our 1, 2 into finish again. So gives you basic idea. It's, again, probably something you guys already do without thinking about it much. I'm just raising your awareness of what that looks like and giving it a name so you know what I'm talking about. All right, the fun stuff, decisions at the rim. One of my favorite things to work on is decision making. And we're going to give you the intro stuff we're going to get into much later in the course. This is only week 5, so 7 more layers of this. We're going to dive deep into decision making. But basic idea, going back to the light switch analogy, binary means there's only 2 options. So I'm never going to tell you you could shoot, pass, or dribble because that complicates things too much. And when we're deciding at the rim, we don't want to say you could do a regular layup, do a hook layup, or do a Euro step because that complicates things too much. So we're going to build situational context behind the scenes of like, this is the scenario, this is where the defender's coming from, therefore this is your best option as a default, right? Our on switch is maybe it is a hook finish because the defender's coming across the backboard hard, but then our option 2 is a Euro step. If that defender comes too hard to try and reach our hook finish, our Euro step's going to destroy them by going across their momentum and getting space really behind their back where we can then score. We're going to talk about the patient pickup, one of my favorite terms from a mentor of mine. Rather than picking it up right away and going toward a layup, we're kind of hesitating a little bit. Patient pickup means I could like pick it up and shoot it like a pull-up. I could hesitate and take another dribble. I could hesitate and pick it up and still take my 2 strides and layup. So using some change of speed, like we talked about last week with our ball handling, to allow us to get some hang time of the ball and therefore have a more patient pickup, really wait for the defender to react however they're going to react to guard what we just threw at them before we make our final move, final decision. And then the cue is a big part of decision making. Because we're giving ourselves only 2 options, we need something that is the trigger or the cue to flip the light switch, right? So if hook finish is always on, then if defense hips turn across our path would be a cue for our Euro step to flip that switch and do the option 2 of our 2 options. So I'm going to see a couple examples of how we could change direction at the rim, and then you'll see a couple live reads where Coach Kelly is actually guarding me with the realistic, and I'm trying to make my decisions at the rim. All right, first thing we're gonna do is a change of direction in the paint using a crossover. Timing here is the key. Trying to get ball before a foot and really push off direction change like we would be doing a Euro step. Then we're gonna go spin move, similar all these using a second dribble. So we would have already attacked to the paint and then second dribble, change direction, wrapping behind the back. It's very similar to the front crossover, timing and position wise, footwork wise. Spin move, we're trying to get our toes to open up toward the free throw and then rotate again to face the baseline and end up jumping off 2 feet, what I call braced for impact, so that if a defender knocks you when you're spinning, you're not knocked off balance. Pro hop, we've been working on a little bit from our jump stop approach week 3. And then here we're going to get into some decision making. So again, the on-off switch analogy applies. I'm going for layup. When that defender takes away the layup, I change direction. And really what we end up talking about is the decision point is the same. And all these moves that you could be using to change direction are all pretty equal, right? It doesn't really matter which one I'm going to do. I know I need to change direction if he cuts me off, and that's the important part. So it's layup or change direction, and then we start working on some fun tools of how to change direction. I could Euro step if I already picked up my dribble. I could do a cross or a wrap behind or a spin move if I still had my dribble alive and in play. But the read of my defender and the decision point and the cue that I'm using to make that decision are all really the same. So the simplest framework is layup or change direction, getting really good at that, and then starting to find some different ways to execute that change direction. All comes from the philosophy I have of building skills downstream from decisions. So we get good at the decision, make it a on-off switch scenario, and then when it's an on switch, we know a lot of different ways to finish around the basket. If it's a change of direction, then we can work on a lot of different ways to change direction. And when we get good at both sides of that simple decision framework, then we can have a lot of fun no matter what the defense throws at us. All right, finishing through contact. So all of that changing direction option stuff is kind of where I like to live, where my brain stays for a lot of the time, kind of what I would talk about as the finesse side of finishing, where we're really avoiding contact. We're just destroying the defender when they overplay us and avoiding contact to come up with free space and therefore better quality shots. But after working through that for a long time, really what I concluded was I need to come back to finishing through contact in order to force that defender to overplay us. So finishing by creating space to finish, like using our body to actually get the defender off of us a little bit to free up space for the ball, shielding the ball, so hand, elbow, arm position, elbows to ears as we're going through the paint, all that stuff applies to protecting the ball so it's not getting stripped or deflected or blocked. And then absorbing contact, so like physically being able to jump through somebody hitting you pretty hard and absorbing that, usually on our inside shoulder where a defender is going to live between us and the basket, absorbing a lot of contact on that inside shoulder and elbow and still being able to finish with the outside hand, making that and one a possibility. And again, frustrating the defense by still scoring when they like gave it their hardest shot at stopping us. Then they're eventually going to take that frustration and overplay too hard. Like they're going to jump across our path to stop our outside hand finish. And then all of our change of direction moves are that much more effective. So, like I just talked about with the decision framework, if we get good at a lot of different options of finishing and changing direction, and we start building the capability and the comfort level with finishing when they do foul us, then kind of just opens up Pandora's box where every counter move that we would normally do is much more effective because we are capable of finishing through contact. And we're not just changing direction because we felt like it or we learned this new cool move. It was we changed direction because the defense had to try so hard to stop our regular layup because we always make it even when they foul us, that now our counter move is really, really good. And they're even more frustrated because they tried to foul us and like take us out of the play, and we simply Euro step sidestepped them and got a floater instead, and they swung at air and completely missed what was intended to be a hard foul to really stop us. So we're going to be using our realistic as a bumper pad. You can see here I'm giving a pretty good shove to the side. Your challenge here is to stay with both feet in the paint and absorb that hit that's trying to knock you off target and keep your toes running toward the rim. And then we're going to do it on the first step, what I call the pivot step. We're taking a hit. This is probably the most difficult one because you're on your outside foot while you're getting hit in that direction of your outside foot. So you're on your right foot here, getting hit to the right. Very difficult to maintain balance and control. And then the third one, probably where we're most comfortable, where we're most used to being hit, is right at the jump. So this is your on-ball defender just clobbering you or bumping shoulders with you as you're going up to shoot it. And we're going to try to get better at body control and again, absorbing contact, leaning into that defender a little bit so that they can hit us but not stop us. Going back to our week 2 footwork finishing, our stride stop here, we're going to work on a power layup with that outside hand and dribble and step, and then a 1-2 stop, and work on doing that through contact. Then the last part here is when we still have a dribble. So using the dribble and our 0 step to hit that defender. So a lot of times we'll have an on-ball defender close to us, kind of getting in our path, and we've got a momentary opportunity to bump them with our inside shoulder and actually clear some space for our next 2 steps to get us clear all the way to the basket. So summarizing, moves and counter moves, really the focus of the week is getting comfortable with a lot of different options, at least the last 2 steps of a lot of options, because the approach footwork wise and dribble wise tends to be the same. There's only 1 or 2 ways that we're going to get into that final dribble. And from there, the last 2 steps are where we have the most differences. Then we're going to work on decisions at the rim. Can we make a straight layup versus change direction? Get comfortable with that. Get comfortable with how and when to make decisions and how to execute the skills that go with each side of that decision. We're going to work on the 0 step, both for our standard layup and for our goofy foot approach, trying to get outside hand, inside foot, outside hand, outside foot, get comfortable with different combinations and just really raise your awareness about when that step happens and when the ball hits the floor, how can you use those next 2 steps after the 0 step? And then we're going to go through finishing through contact. Could be a lot of fun, get knocked around with a pad, get more comfortable with finishing the and one all the time. And again, the ultimate goal here is to get you where no matter what happens around the rim, you've got an opportunity with any hand, any foot, any time, you're going to come up with a way to score no matter what the defense does to stop you. That's it for week 5. I'll see you on the court soon.